The Empire Strikes Back is one of the most celebrated sequels of all time. It introduces new characters and greatly expands on the fan favourites of the original film. Maybe we've got some hot takes, maybe we don't. Only one way to find out. Welcome everyone to the Atomic Cinema Experiment. I am Peter, and joining me as always is Tara.
Hello everybody.
No greeting, citizens?
I feel like I tried to drop that before and then brought it back, but I don't know. I'm inconsistent.
Okay. Maybe you'll bring back the yum yum at the end of the episode.
Yum.
Look forward to that return.
No way anybody remembers what that's from anyway.
Welcome to the show, everyone. This is a science fiction podcast. We get together and we talk about a movie. It's quite that simple. And on this episode, to sort of basically act as a season finale to our number 2 season, we did Cube 2, we did the second Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, we did the second, I forget what other ones we did now, but we did a whole bunch of sequels that were all the second films. And we're capping that all off with perhaps the biggest one of all time, which is The Empire Strikes Back. We did the original Star Wars late last year, maybe? Or was it earlier this year? I can't remember. But
I don't know how time works anymore. I don't know. It was a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away.
I'm not...
What, you don't hate it? Come on.
I just... Low-hanging fruit is the phrase that comes to mind.
But look how happy it made me.
It made you happy. It didn't make me happy.
I know you like it. Shut
up. Anyway, we'll start spoiler-free, just in case anyone is not wanting spoilers for Empire Strikes Back. Although, I suspect that if you're watching a science fiction movie podcast, there's a very, very good chance that you know everything that happens in this movie. But we have a format. We'll stick to it regardless, and we'll give you warning before we get to the spoilers. But obviously, as a sequel, meaning there'll probably be casual spoilers for the previous film. Again, most of you probably won't care because you all know Star Wars, but worth stick to the format.
In case any of you are 6 years old.
If you're new, yeah, whatever. Anyway, so we'll get into it. We're both very positive on Star Wars. We both actually said it was our favorite of the trilogy, which is in the minority. Most people prefer Empire. Empire is often heralded as one of the best films ever made. It's often heralded as one of the best sequels ever made, and there's an entire film magazine in the UK that's called Empire, which is named after Empire Strikes Back. It's the whole thing.
I mean, all those things can still be true with Star Wars being our favorite. They could still be one of the best sequels ever made. It could still be one of the best movies ever made.
Oh, sure. Yeah. I'm just trying to, put in perspective, though, the pedestal of which Empire Strikes Back is typically put upon. So we'll get to everything as we do. First film, they destroyed the Death Star. The rebellion was happy, and as the title would imply, Darth Vader and his buddies are coming for the rebellion, and thus starts The Empire Strikes Back. I'm simplifying it a bit, but that's the gist of it. It's also the movie, of course, that's going to introduce Yoda. It'll introduce Lando. It'll introduce a few other concepts that are in Star Wars, and we'll get into all that stuff and break down what we like, what we don't like, so on and so on. So, without further ado, though, we'll start off how we always do. Tara, how did you feel once again watching The Empire Strikes Back?
I love it. I think it's an incredible sequel and definitely lives up to the hype. I mean, obviously I love the first one a little bit more, but I tend to always like the first movies more because sequels are really hard to do. But this is one of those examples. That's why it's probably famous also, is that it takes what was done in the first film and it continues on with the story, and it's not the same story. There's some similar beats, but it expands on that world and on the characters you already like. And there's more Muppets involved than Frank Oz, so that's always going to be a plus. I still think that the first Star Wars is my favorite. That didn't change, but with the new planets that you get to see and the new characters are all really strong, and there's some relationships brewing, and that's always fun to see. There's a dynamic. Plus, it like even from the opening crawl, it's much darker. It is a more, I don't know if mature is the right word, but like it tells you that things are not okay because they defeated the Death Star at the end of the last film. Like we are still in trouble, and I like that setup. Anyway, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's a good movie. I'm not going to try and pretend that I'm coming in here with like a super hot take, but I think there's some minor hot takes that might come out as I talk about this. Like I obviously I love how it's mostly made. I love the miniatures, the practical effects. I love the space stuff. I love all that juicy stuff. There's some good fight scenes. There's some nice build up to some showdowns that have kind of been brewing since the first one and all that. And like you say, there's some relationship brewing between some of the characters. And my favorite thing about Star Wars was always the characters and their interactions, which is actually why I prefer the first one, because I think this one suffers a little bit for me because it splits them up. Now, admittedly, it's only really Luke who's separated, and that's why I think when I watch this, I greatly prefer the Han and Leia on the Millennium Falcon story than I do Luke's story, because they have the bouncing off each other, they have the back and forth. And I'm going to hit you with a little bit of a hot take here. Dagobah and Yoda stuff, it's okay. I can take it or leave it. There's one good bit in it, admittedly, but for the most part, it kind of feels like a weird, like I don't know. It feels like it's set up to like to do a certain thing for the character, but the amount of time that like when I watch the movie, I always feel like the Dagobah stuff like feels like it's on a different sort of timeline than the Millennium Falcon stuff. It feels like it's lasting over a much longer stretch of time. But then when the stories intersect again, it's very clear that no, this has literally been the exact same amount of time in both stories, and it's just I don't know. It feels a bit weird to me because of that. But that's my main hang up, is that I'm not necessarily that into Luke going to Dagobah. I don't worship the altar of Yoda like lots of Star Wars nerds do. Like he's okay, but I like he may be my least favorite part of this movie.
I am going to have to hard disagree. I also, I understand that things are different because everyone's separated. So the dynamic is not quite as there. But the whole time that Luke is going through his thing, he doesn't forget about his friends, and that's like it's his main motivation for stuff that happens at the last act of the film. And he's constantly reminding us that, this is what's important to him. And the movie like opens with it as well, as them all taking care of each other. And the Han and Leia stuff, I surprisingly still like, even though it does the thing that I kind of hate. I sort of hate the 80s like Sam and Diane dynamic that happens in a lot of movies. And Harrison Ford seems to be at the forefront of a lot of like, what if we hate each other because of like sexual tension? And I'm just like, I don't think those are real relationships, like at least not healthy ones. But I do find that it works surprisingly well still for me in this. And I think it's because there's still a playfulness involved. I don't know if I went into a bit of a spoiler there, but
no, I think it works. I think even when he's been at his most pushy, there's always this kind of, he's just trying to get her to admit that she feels something, and that's kind of like a running thing throughout the movie.
And there are a lot of sweet moments with them though too.
And for the record, no, I agree. I like Luke caring about his friends. Like honestly, the best part of the movie in a lot of ways is the fact that they all sort of look out for each other at certain points, and that's like right there from the start of the movie. But it doesn't really change that I don't really care about Yoda training. I don't care about Yoda doing handstands and running around with Yoda on his back. I find Yoda's...
I don't know. When I was a kid, though, that was like the best part.
I find Yoda's speech patterns to be kind of annoying. I don't find it endearing. There's one good sequence on Dagobah, which I'll get into in spoilers, but it's kind of a dark foreshadowing scene, and like, I think that's got some value in it for where the movie goes. But yeah, I don't think actually. I there is a second thing that I'm not super fond of, and it's admittedly though this is less of a critique of this movie and more the fan base in the decades following the movie, is that Boba Fett is a throwaway character and that's all he is. He's not that cool. And because like the fan base of Star Wars like obsess over this guy, and I know he's got a show now, but for a long time he didn't. For a long time all he had was his few scenes in this and then a couple of scenes in Jedi, and there's just so many toys and models, and I'm like,
well, that's why he's a popular character, was because the action figures came out and everyone was like, what is this Boba Fett? He's a bounty hunter and he is such an iconic outfit, and that is why he became popular. And then when the movie came out, everyone's like, oh, he's kind of a nothing character, but we all like the action figure. And he gets more of a role in the second or in the third one, but like hardly. But
no, not really. I don't want to spoil it, but I'll have thoughts on his part in the third movie.
I mean, I've always agreed that I don't understand the hype of Boba Fett, but I wasn't around when the toys were. So, and that's what I've heard always from the fan base that were a little bit older, the ones that, went in the theaters and saw Star Wars when it came out, and they're just like, we can't wait to see this Boba Fett character.
It's something that I try not to do when I'm watching a movie. I try not to let my opinion of something outside the movie influence something in it, which is not really the movie's fault. But this is a case where the Star Wars fandom and the love for Boba Fett is so potent, and like I've had debates with people about Boba Fett that it just, as soon as he's on screen in this movie, I'm just like, oh, here's this chump. Oh, here we go.
I know, that's why, and they make him such a huge part of, or at least like Jango Fett, right? Like they shove him into the prequels also in this major way, where you're just doing it because people love it. And I hear he's back in like the animated shows as well, and obviously he has the Book of Boba Fett show, which I haven't watched because I've been kind of checked out on the Star Wars shows for a little while.
Yeah. Actually, on that subject though, you brought up the prequels there slightly. I think something we'll talk about a little bit is there's one or two things brought up in this that obviously they expand upon in the prequels. And then there's one or two things that it feels like they kind of retcon with the prequels. Like I was noticing that there was a line in here. I'll just bring it up.
That may happen a lot, actually.
There was a line in here where Ghost Ben, right? Yes, this is an early part. It sets up the whole plot where Luke's going to go. But he says that Yoda's the Jedi that trained him, that instructed him. And then all I had in my head was flashbacks of Phantom Menace, and I'm like, but Qui-Gon was his... Yeah, Liam Neeson. The Taken guy. He was the one who was training you. What are you talking about?
Yeah, Yoda was just part of the Council of Jedi or whatever. Jedi Council.
So, I know obviously there's probably a lot, but that felt like a pretty big thing to me for it not to line up. It's not
Obi-Wan was like lying all the time about...
It's not quite the same, but it made me think of in Terminator Salvation when the character says, oh, it's too dangerous to move about at night. We have to go during the day. And I'm like, wait a minute. Terminator 1 said the exact opposite. Kyle said that because daytime it's so easy to spot you, you have to move at night. And I'm like, you've just completely done a 50, like a 180 here. You've just completely swapped it.
Well, the timelines are different.
Oh, don't get me that. Don't get me that. We're not getting into it. We're not getting into it, right? We're not. Don't make me debate Terminator, because I actually care about Terminator lore. Star Wars lore, on the other hand, I like the characters, the lore, and the mystique of like what the Jedi were before. Like I'm happy with that just being a bit of mystery and just being a backstory.
Honestly, it's the reason I hate the episode 3 so much. Like I think it's the worst in the prequels because it tries to tie things together, and it's so messy canonically that I find it not just unsatisfying, but like how dare you guys think I'm an idiot? Like I don't love these movies and I don't know what it's supposed to be.
I think I would sum up by saying episode 3 feels more like an exercise of like tying a lot of like ropes together rather than actually making a story. It's the same way when we talk about like nostalgia sequels and stuff, where they're not really making a story, they're just sort of making a framework around a bunch of nostalgia references to make everyone go, oh, and remember that thing. you know?
Yeah, and everybody laughs and claps their hand, and they're like, "This is the greatest thing. They finally got it right in the prequels." And I'm like, "No, they got so much wrong. Do you guys even like Star Wars?"
But there'll be time for prequel slander, in ample amounts when we actually get to those. That occurred to me because like I've seen these movies before, but I don't watch them religiously, so I don't remember all the details. So when he said that, I'm like, wait a minute, like I didn't remember him saying that, and I was like, that doesn't quite add up with the one of the few things I remember about those prequels, which is that.
Do you remember the first time you saw this one?
The first time, it'd have been about a year or two before Phantom Menace when the special edition VHSs were doing the rounds. Yeah,
okay. They did they released them in theaters also. So I know I had seen them previously on television. I want to say they were like special events for like, we're showing the Star Wars tonight. Everyone gather around the TV. But I really remember watching them for the first time fully, and in the years coming up on the prequels when they released them in theaters. I want to say they re-released them in theaters right before the special edition VHSs came out. That's like a promotional thing. Like see the original theatrical for the last time in theaters before the special editions.
Interesting. I think what's interesting to me about this movie is the timing of everything is like not what I remember every time I watch it, because I don't remember the hot stuff taking up like almost 40 minutes of the movie. It feels in my memory, it's like, oh, that's the first 10 minutes. And then
when you think about everything that happens though, like it is a lot.
Yeah. And then likewise, like, oh, I can't really say what happens towards the end, but there's a portion at the end that I thought was like much nearer the end than, but it's actually the last like half hour as opposed to, so there's a lot of like weird stretching and compressing of time in my memory of like how the plot plays out. That said though, I do think, I like the first 40 minutes because everyone's together. It was more of the movie than I remembered, so I was actually kind of pleased that there was more, but with them all kind of in the same space. And then, I enjoy the Millennium Falcon stuff, particularly the interactions with Han and Leia, and ultimately, of course, the introduction of Lando. I almost said Londo. There's a Freudian Babylon 5 slip.
I might do that.
Hey, to be fair,
just say land like Han.
It's one syllable, okay? It's very easy to just make that shift. That said, Londo would improve any of Star Wars.
How dare you? No one pulls a cape like Lando. No one can get away with calling Han Solo Han.
No. Like I was not suggesting replacing Lando with Londo. I just meant adding him to a Star Wars would, like, replace the Emperor with Londo.
You want to replace Yoda with Londo.
Oh, that would be good actually. I'm imagining Luke like just landing Dagobah and Londo's just sitting there with like a bottle of whatever booze he's drinking. Ah yes, Mr. Skywalker. I
love Yoda. And I don't love him in the prequels, but like I love Yoda here.
I'm going to put Yoda in the camp for it's just for me personally. He's in the overrated Star Wars stuff for me. Every time I've watched Empire Strikes Back since about 10 years ago, I've liked his stuff less, and I just don't like it. I just don't think I like it. I think ultimately it's just a taste thing.
Well, he's definitely annoying when you first meet him, but like it's kind of the point.
Oh yeah. I mean, yeah, I know that.
And also, so is Luke.
Well, and that's my other problem with it is that Luke's kind of annoying in this plot as well for a lot of it, because he's constantly he's just bitching about, oh, when am I going to get to Yoda? Because Yoda's not.
But you know why?
Yoda. Why?
With a big payoff in the beginning of the next movie.
I don't remember what you're talking about, but I'll trust you. I'll trust you, and we'll revisit this when we do Jedi. But not that I'm going to remember, but.
Oh, I will. It's the thing. It's the first thing I love about Return of the Jedi.
Okay. Yeah. So, but obviously, like I'm bringing up the hot takey things I've got, but obviously
everyone expects it from you. So.
The film looks great, of course. I like the effects. I like a lot of the characters.
Can we talk about the music? Oh my god! Like the music's elevated as well. It's such an exciting film, constantly all the way through, and I think You know, a lot of the stuff that normally wouldn't work for me for the romance does because the Leia's theme is just so beautiful.
I always forget that the Imperial March isn't in the first movie. It was an addition for Empire. I also forget how little, because the Emperor's in this movie, but he's actually in less of it than I thought he was, because I remembered him showing up in person, but apparently that doesn't happen till Jedi, because you only see like the video call, the hologram.
Yeah, he just sends his pawns to do all his work.
Yeah, which actually, not to shit on other stuff, like, this is not prequel slander. This is sequels slander.
I'm okay with it.
Because it made me think, actually, when it was just that, I was like, do you know what? It's actually like sickening almost how strictly they stuck to like these movies, like in terms of copying things. Because like the first time you see, like, I think Snoke or whoever, it is just like one. They were.
Yeah, it's just a hint. Like, what is he? We don't know.
Oh, it's like yeah. Actually, I think that's one of the things that I want to praise about this, actually, is watching Empire. Like, because you one of the first things you said is you said that this is continuing the story, but it's not just doing the same thing. It's its own. It's got a different structure. It's got a different premise. It doesn't end neatly because it's by this point they knew they'd get a third movie, so they sort of end it on like there's more to come. Whereas the first one, even though it was still open, it still had a neat ending. Like if they never got another movie, the end of Star Wars would have still kind of they kind of won. Like just like they destroyed the Death Star. It's over. Yay!
Yeah.
Have a parade. But watching this now, in this era where we have so many nostalgia sequels, like the modern Star Wars movies that are so like religiously just recreating those movies to a fault. It's actually really refreshing watching this and not feeling it feel like it's having to copy the first movie when all of the new movies have felt like they're copying, at least maybe the trilogy. Maybe I'm being unfair to the spin-offy ones, but like, that new trilogy was so tied to like just redoing moments, and I mean Force Awakens especially was like the exact structure of the first one.
I mean, I loved Force Awakens when it came out because I think that it's like, oh, this is great. This is exactly what I remember Star Wars being. But now I'm a little more critical of it because so many things have come from it that I'm bored of this formula. I just see the Matrix code of the Force Awakens and all these scripts now.
I completely agree. I think it's aged worse in hindsight because of all these other movies that have done the same trick. It's almost like you said there. It reminds me of the first Star Wars. This is what I remember it being. For whatever reason, that made me think of the scene from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, The Secret of the Ooze, where Raphael...
Is that the one with what's his name in it? Dang it. Guy from Galaxy Quest.
Sam Rockwell?
Yeah, Sam Rockwell
he's in the first one.
Debut in one of the Turtles movies.
No, he's in the first one. But the second one has David Warner in it, if that's...
Don't let it end.
Yeah, there you go. That's the one. But there's a scene where Raph's been kidnapped by the enemy, and the other three turtles are like coming up to him, and he's like tied to a post. And as they're walking to him, they're like, "Oh, it's quiet, a little too quiet." And then they see Raph, and it's like, "Oh, it's Raph, a little too Raph." And I just thought of that because when you said, "Oh, this makes me," I remember this is what Star Wars felt like. I'm like, yeah, it's a little too Star Wars.
It's awfully suspicious.
But I think that actually, in a weird way, does sum it up. Is that it's Star Wars, but it's so strictly Star Wars that it's not been allowed to do or advance anything. Whereas this does, and there was clearly plans to take things forward. Obviously, it builds up to a very famous ending and reveal, and there's a couple of hints throughout that it's building to that, which we'll talk about. But it does not feel like it's just copying the first movie, and I think that is to be applauded. Probably even at the time, but certainly today in the world we live in. Like, yes, I'm so pleased that this isn't just copy it. And if anything, looking forward to Jedi, I would say Jedi does feel like it's a bit closer to the first film, which,
it does a good job wrapping up the story, I think, though.
I mean, yeah, we can discuss that when we get to it. But
also, I didn't notice as many special edition things in this one.
No, I've always felt this is the one that's the least. There is like one really dodgy shot when they're in the cloud type place at the end. There's like an establishing shot of we cut to Leia at a window eventually at the end of the scene, but like the shot before that is going around all the structures it's like, oh, this looks a bit. They've definitely, if this wasn't originally there, or they definitely touched it up. If it's not completely new entirely, it looks quite rough. But Empire, I think, always was the one of the three that, at least having never seen the originals, has the least in it that I noticed, because the first film has, I think, more CG like inserted. Obviously,
it has
that awful
whole scenes inserted.
Yeah, the Jabba scene. Yeah, and then the third one has the awful Force Ghost. We won't talk about the specifics yet, but and that
so
was
unnecessary.
And that was something they kept making worse. Like the DVD version, they made it even worse. And we've been stuck with that ever since. Come on, Disney, all your movies are underperforming this year. Now's the time to break the glass. The theatrical cuts of Star Wars in case of an emergency. Come on, break the glass. It's time. Maybe they need to wait until Lucas dies or something. Maybe there's a clause where, well, he's alive, they're not allowed to go back.
That's always been my thing. It's kind of like when Prince died and all of his stuff became like fair use for movies and stuff, like because he never let his music be used in movies. I think Michael Jackson might be the same. Although
except for 1989 Batman, he had several Prince songs.
Well, he made a song for Batman. Yes. Yeah. And same with Purple Rain. but yeah. But then after he died, like you heard like "Let's Go Crazy" everywhere. It was in the sequel to the Kingsman movie.
Oh, okay.
Dearly Beloved. No,
I'm not familiar with it. No, I'm sorry.
Too bad. Well, I mean, it's your own loss because Prince is great.
Prince is one of those artists where I couldn't tell you any of his songs.
I just like literally named one that a movie was named after.
Okay, yes. Well, I didn't realize there was a song called Purple Rain. I know there's a movie called Purple Rain.
Well, it's an album and a song and a movie.
Sounds like didn't put a lot of effort into the namings then. If we just used the same name 3 times, but
he's the genius. All right, just let him work. Let him cook.
I think he's done cooking, Tara. That was a morbid he's dead joke. I'm sorry, everyone.
It's okay. I'll get over it one day.
Yes.
He was a big weirdo.
I don't know if he
was a small weirdo.
I don't know if he was cremated, but if he was, that added to my joke. No?
I'm sure he's buried under an ark somewhere.
Probably. Yeah. Some grave with a big fence around it and a big statue, probably.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Anyway, so is there anything else we want to talk about before we get into the movie? I mean, like I say, I feel like most people probably know it, so it's probably safe to go into spoilers quickly with this one. It just made sense to talk about all the other things first.
I think I'm ready. I'm ready to talk about spoilers.
Okay.
Let's do this.
All right. Well, there's some patriarch elements to this film.
You might go right into the spoiler. Okay.
I just said that as a joke. We'd have to go straight into it. We can. Yeah, okay. Let's talk about it because, like, obviously, so yeah. Look, I'm your father. There's that, right? I think one of the things that I like, because I kind of forgot about this moment, and this is the one thing I liked in the Dagobah stuff, is like there's the scene where Yoda makes Luke go into like a mystical cave to face his fear or his ultimate fear or whatever it is.
He doesn't really make him. He just sort of like feels the pull of it.
Oh sure, yeah. I feel like Yoda's like knowing that he's going to be doing this. He's like pushing
Yoda
him into
knows.
it.
Yoda seems like you're not ready for it, and I don't want you to go. But if you're going to go, leave your weapons behind or something.
Yeah. And he goes in, and of course Darth Vader walks out, and it's an effective moment because him and Darth Vader have not went one-on-one yet. That doesn't happen till the end of this movie. They like the entire first movie, like he witnessed Darth Vader, he saw him. This movie really establishes that
dismember his mentor.
Yeah, and this movie really establishes that Vader and the Emperor are aware of Luke. The Emperor's all, there's a disturbance in the Force. There's this little prick named Luke Skywalker. We should kill him.
He is kind of a little prick.
And Vader's like, or we could have him join us. And he's like, yes. And that's also where he's like, yeah, I believe he is the son of Anakin Skywalker. And it's all like, oh yeah, well, we're not going to say your son because we don't want to spoil that for the audience. We're going to speak all. And
Anakin Skywalker.
I feel like the choice to have the Emperor refer to Anakin Skywalker as if he's another person is almost like they're retroactively trying to justify why Obi-Wan spoke the way he did about Anakin in the first movie when he said...
But I think it's also a continuation of the fact that when Darth Vader was born, Anakin died.
Well, you see that's a
they are kind of treated like two different people.
Well, you say it's a continuation, but what's it continuing from in this case? Where was that established?
Because in the first film, Obi-Wan tells Luke that your father was a great Jedi and he was killed by Darth Vader.
Yeah, and hold on. So you're telling me you don't think that when that line was written originally, it's because they hadn't decided yet that Darth Vader was going to turn out to be his father?
No, but I think it works. I think it works. It doesn't have to be intentional for it to work.
No. I agree. It doesn't have to be intentional, but I'm just challenging you, saying it's a continuation. To me, this is the establishing of this. This isn't the continuation. This is them starting it.
Okay. I don't understand how that would be any different, though.
Well, I'm saying that they're trying to retroactively make the way Obi-Wan talked about it work, right? So they're kind of phrasing it this way so that in hindsight makes sense. So they're almost like they're fixing a mistake. Yeah, it's almost like they're fixing a mistake here with phrasing it this way. That's all I'm suggesting.
But I think, given what we know about the Emperor and Darth Vader's relationship, I think it is very much like you left Anakin behind and now you're Darth Vader. So I will also refer to him as a dead person.
I see what you're saying, but we don't have that yet.
You acknowledge it?
No, but we don't have that yet. You're saying what we know of their relationship, but we don't know that yet. We don't know anything about their relationship yet. All we know about their relationship is this one scene. It's literally this one scene.
No, we know that Darth Vader refers to the Emperor as Master.
Yes, okay, sure. Yeah, we hear that here.
So there's a little bit of a master-father-like thing going on there.
No, I agree with that. I'm just saying, but you're definitely bringing in some of what we know about their thing from Jedi and possibly even the prequels.
Yeah, but I don't know. I think it all like all this stuff works though. It all still fits in the canon, and if they want to write it this way so that it works with the first film, I'm happy with that.
Oh yeah, but I wasn't even critiquing it. I'm just sort of pointing it out and going, hey, that's why they're doing it that way, because they have to make that first movie and what Obi-Wan said work. Now, I'm sure people will say that it was always planned. Maybe that's true.
I doubt that.
But I don't believe it. I don't believe it was always planned. I think
I don't believe that George Lucas has a plan or even writes scripts.
And I also
this one's Lawrence Kasdan, right?
Yeah, but I'm sure Lucas had
I'm pretty sure he's credited as a writer and the story and all that.
Yeah. Obviously, Irvin Kershner is the director of this one. Very, highly esteemed director. RoboCop 2.
Yeah. Dead or alive, you're coming with me again.
Yeah.
I don't know the line from RoboCop 2.
Wait, he didn't. Oh, he's an actor in Undeadly Ground. I saw Undeadly.
I love that movie.
I saw Undeadly Ground. I went, he didn't direct that. I'm sure that was Seagal.
I love that movie, but I wish Steven Seagal was just a little bit more patriotic. That would have made it so much better.
Okay. Anyway, what were we talking about?
I just want to talk about On the Deadly Ground.
We're not talking about On Deadly Ground. What were we talking about before?
Directors. Something about Palpatine and Darth Vader's relationship.
I feel like we're moving on from that, but okay.
All right, it's time to move on.
Yeah.
What's that?
Okay. Yeah. So anyway, so Luke has this vision where Darth Vader is there, and they have a quick fight, and he wins. He cuts off Darth Vader's head, and Darth Vader's helmet is damaged, and it reveals that inside the helmet was Luke. And obviously, I think when you're first watching the movie, this is okay, this represents Luke's fear of turning to the dark side, and we know that from the Emperor and Vader scene that that's what they want to do, is they want to turn them. So this movie kind of becomes about this idea that the dark side is going to be trying to pull on him as well. That sounded dirtier than I intended to, but you know what I meant. But I think what's good about this is that in hindsight, when you get to the end of the movie, is that I actually think this is foreshadowing that Darth Vader's his father. Forgetting the fact that you know what he looks like from the prequels, it would make a lot of sense to think that Luke's father would probably look a lot like him, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's his father. So the idea of him seeing himself in the Vader helmet is like the Force maybe kind of loosely, like, you know, because that way that they constantly sense things in the Force. I think this is like a way that the Force is kind of like...
a bit of a communication.
Yeah. It's like he's sort of sensing that there's some sort of connection to him, that is part of him is in there. And then obviously it turns out to be... And that's why at the end of the movie, when Darth says, I am your father, and Luke says, no, that can't be true, he says, no, look inside yourself, you know it to be true. That moment of him seeing himself in the Darth Vader helmet is the confirmation for the audience, and that's what Luke effectively thinks about. Or like when he feels it inside him, we already saw that he feels it inside him, because that's what the face on the helmet was earlier.
Yeah, it's like a Force vision or something from whatever this cave is, which I assume is something that's just, maybe there's, I don't know, Force magic, kyber crystals going on in there. I don't know, but I don't hate that this thing exists. You know, that there's just this powerful pull that, you know, obviously the Skywalkers all have this connection with the Force, so like having these spiritual like visions, I think makes sense. And I do really like the scene as well, because you're right, like the first time you watch it, you think, oh, he's afraid of being drawn by the power of the dark side. Even Yoda's like, don't go in there, you don't need to look. Like, it's not, you're not ready for it. But he says, I have to, I just feel this compulsion. So it is a bit of a warning, like he may get drawn. And you know, that all gets explored way more in the next movie. And
of course, the good thing is that despite the fact that I'm saying that it turns out to be this foreshadowing of the father thing, and you know, works really well for realizing that Luke does know that deep down. Everything you just said there is also still true. Like, yeah, there is still a fear of being pulled to the dark side. You know, that's still true. It doesn't have to be not true for the other thing to work. So, all that works really well. I do. This is not so much a critique per se, but what was interesting to me. So when he eventually leaves, right? He's like, "Oh no, I sense that Han and Leia are in trouble. They're my friends. I'm going to go help them." And Yoda's like, "No, let them die because your training's more important." And Ghost Ben shows up, you know, and he's like, "Yeah, look, you have to stay here." And he's like, no, I need to go and help them. It doesn't matter. Which I like. I like that he makes that choice. You know, it's the idea that, you know, it's not worth doing this if the people I care about are going to suffer because of it, right? I like that choice. But you've got the famous line where he's flying off, and Ben, you know, Obi-Wan says, you know, that boy is our last hope, and Yoda says, no, there is another, right? It's a famous line people quote all the time. And as soon as he said it, I sort of thought, like, I know just from, like, my general knowledge that what he's talking about is Leia, but it occurred to me in the moment, I'm like, does that really get paid off in any way, shape, or form in the rest of this movie? I don't think it does.
Yes.
Well, let me. You could tell me where it gets paid off in a second, but I'll give you my interpretation of the moment that I think should have been a more clear payoff for it. Is that when Luke's dangling from an antenna after he's lost his hand, he's dove down this big chute. He's basically left there for dead if he can't somehow like signal someone to come and help him. And he reaches out via the Force to Leia, who's in the Millennium Falcon with Lando. And she's like, oh, I can hear Luke, or I can sense Luke in my head. And they turn back to go get him, and that's how they save Luke. I think a simple little change here for me, right? And I know this is blasphemy to people who love Empire Strikes Back that I'm suggesting an improvement. But I actually would not have had Luke reach out to her. I would have had Leia just sense him on her own, and that would be the payoff to there is another. It's this like, no, she has the Force too. She's sensing him, and she goes back for him.
Yeah, I think that does work. I don't know that it works better, because this is a Luke who's at least had training and is more understanding and more connected to the Force. So maybe he already senses that Leia is a part of it too, or at least he doesn't know why, but he's able to sense that she's able to pick it up. So
maybe.
I don't know, but I do agree that the Leia Force stuff has been underutilized throughout the whole series. I mean, I feel like if Carrie Fisher had stayed alive, we would have gotten a more satisfying conclusion to something like that. But they tried, though. They tried in the last film. at least.
It feels like, yeah, they don't really do much with it, and I could have used like just a more direct moment where it was her using, even if it's just, again just as something as simple as sensing that he needed help and like having that instinct to go back and look for him. That would have been enough to be like, okay, that's something that's just her tapping into something unintentionally, but just because like the emotions are there to like sort of motivate her to do so.
Yeah, especially I guess. Well, I mean, I guess it works still because he's had the training, but in the opening of the film, Luke is in distress and he does need help, and he's, you know, essentially going to die if someone doesn't find him.
Yeah.
So he there could have been something there at least where Leia feels like there's something wrong. I mean, she does go around asking if people have seen him, but we don't really see that. We just sort of hear like some sort of courier tell Han that like Leia's asking if anyone's seen Luke.
Let's leave that for a second, because I want to go back and talk about all that hot stuff. But so when I said they don't pay that off in the movie, there's another line. You said that they did. So by all means,
the Bespin scene. I mean, it's a scene you went into. It's the same scene. So it's the scene of Luke reaching into the Force and calling to Leia.
Oh.
But I mean, mostly it pays off in the third film.
I didn't think she had to have the Force to like, receive the transmission as effectively. So it never even occurred to me that was in any way confirming anything.
I don't know that I can think of anyone who sees or senses anything who doesn't have the Force.
Okay. I mean, I still liked what I suggested better, but like, fair enough.
Okay.
Well, I think it would have also, it tapped into, because there's a constant thing in this movie, like you say, of people looking out, like these characters looking out for each other and being concerned for each other. And yeah, going back to the hot stuff at the start, Luke, who's a bit of an idiot, gets kidnapped by a Yeti. And like, is Hoth's this dangerous, super cold planet, the storm's coming in, and Han's ready to leave. He's just bickering with Leia, and as soon as he like finds out that Luke's not back yet, he immediately gets concerned and just puts himself at risk to go and find him. And it's like, oh, that's kind of heartwarming. He's going off to save Luke.
Yeah, and it's not like the Millennium Falcon's ready to go. It's like under repair, so he has to go out on Tauntaun.
Absolutely, yeah.
Which he hates.
And they have to even camp. In fact, he pulls a bit of a Revenant and like his Tauntaun dies, so he cuts it open and puts Luke inside.
Reversed, but yes.
What?
Revenant obviously takes from the Tauntaun scene.
Oh, okay. I mean, I wasn't suggesting that it actually took from that. I was just saying the Revenant.
Although, what's his name? Glass. I don't want to say his name is Hugh Glass because I don't think that's right, but it might be right. The guy from the Revenant is a real guy, so maybe he did do that. The
point is that the Revenant is more known for Leo sleeping inside the bear for warmth than I think this one moment in Empire is for Luke sleeping inside the Tauntaun.
Okay.
People can disagree with me. I do think it's interesting though that Han picks up Luke's lightsaber to do the cutting, and I'm like, oh, it's interesting just seeing him use one, because like this original,
it's just a tool for him. Yeah.
This original series of movies is very like shy about having anyone that's not a Jedi or Sith like pick up a lightsaber. Whereas the new films, you had like Poe like run around with it for a bit and even try and fight with it. Which honestly, having someone who's not a Jedi trying to use one and like failing miserably is kind of interesting, honestly.
Well, yeah, Finn did that in the first one, yeah.
Oh, Finn, not Poe, sorry. I'm mixing up the characters.
Poe might have done it in like a later film. I only saw the last one once. And
I don't think he did. I was literally just swapping their names. I was thinking of Boyega in my head. I just swapped the names around because they're such memorable characters that I just,
I do think the characters are quite memorable, at least.
I mean, they're okay, but I mean, like...
Boyega should be a superstar, though.
Yeah, so... Yeah, so the opening of the movie, so we talked about the big thing. Because I wanted to talk about the things that sort of led up to it, and how I really appreciated, especially on this viewing, like thinking about it a bit more critically for themes and things like that, how much the movie does kind of introduce this pull to and from the dark side. The entire thing in the third act is a trap for Luke, because Darth Vader wants Luke. That's what they're there for. They're there to kidnap him and try and turn them. So But anyway, back to the hot stuff at the start. So, that's obviously leads to one of the big famous action sequences of the movie, when the Empire actually do find where they are, which has got a couple of fun dark comedy beats, I mean to say, on the way. Basically, there's like an admiral who just kind of disregards, whatever reading that drone got, it's not important, right? Darth Vader takes one look at the drone reading and goes, "That's it. That's where they are. The rebellion's there." And he's like, Lord Vader, are you sure about this? And then he seemingly like alerts the enemy that they're there by like coming at a light speed, like too soon or something like that. And Darth Vader just chokes him, it kills him, and promotes the other guy. I enjoy these scenes.
He does it over a view screen, right?
Yeah, he does it through a view screen. Yeah, in fact,
which I think is pretty cool that he has that kind of a range to be able to force choke somebody over a view screen.
Didn't this happen with Kylo Ren in one of the new ones? Because I feel like I remember people debating whether or not that was possible, and then people bringing up this scene and being like, "No, Darth Vader did it in Empire, bloody hell."
I don't remember, but
yeah, I don't remember
it wouldn't
either.
surprise me if they had borrowed from Empire in this scene, because it is kind of comical.
Yeah. Well, maybe it wasn't the same thing. Maybe it was just a case if he did it over a long range, and then people used this scene as like no, look, Darth Vader literally done it through a telephone call. So
yeah,
clearly,
through a Skype call
is not the important thing here. But yeah, so I do love that Han and Leia and all that get away just as Darth Vader's like coming in, because it's like because you kind of feel like these characters, like, what are they even going to do if they're in a room with Darth Vader? Like, Han and Leia are just screwed if, like, they're there with him. And sure enough, in fact, I'll have a slight critique here, actually. This is a slight little nitpick. Is that later on, when the trap is sprung, when they're on the Cloud City, and, like, Lando opens the door, and, like, Darth Vader's there, and, like, Han and Leia go in as if they're going to have this dinner scene, and then it cuts away. I actually, every time I watch this movie, I'm disappointed we don't get a scene with them sitting there with Darth Vader, because like, what would they talk about? What would Han say? Like, I can imagine like Darth Vader like just sounding like Darth Vader, and Han just being like a defiant little shit, because that's who Han Solo is.
You want to see the uncomfortable Thanksgiving dinner with your conservative parents or something?
I want to see Han be defiant, even though Darth Vader could kill him in an instant, because that's who Han Solo is. That's what I want to see.
Yeah, he is sassy.
So I feel like there's like a deleted scene
Sassy
there
boy.
For whatever reason they just didn't keep in.
It is quite a tease. It is a little bit of a, you guys like this? It's gone.
So there is that. But right from the get go, the Han and Leia chemistry is like off the charts. Like I like the performances, because like Han's saying, "Hey, it's time to go," and he's saying goodbye to like the other general dude, and Leia just sort of looks over like she's just like. It's like he's just earned the sleeping on the couch look, effectively, because he's saying goodbye, and he comes over and tries to give her like a sort of genuine goodbye, but when she sort of like cold shoulders him, he immediately just goes into like bratty territory, where he starts saying, you're just going to miss me, you're going to be sad that you can't kiss me or anything.
He sounds very Indiana Jones in those moments to me. Whenever he starts shouting, but it's like a pouty shout.
I mean, he is Harrison Ford, but I think this distinctly sounds like Han Solo to me.
Okay.
I would say so. I will say though,
you could use a good kiss.
for all the good like practical effects and all that stuff, I will say the sets for these like ice tunnels did look quite fake. Like they look quite cheap. Just,
yeah.
I think it
they had to make so many different sets though. Like the production design is very good, especially in the last like act of the film.
No, like I don't want to take me as crapping on this, because this is
looks a little bit like you're in a line for a Disneyland ride for Star Wars.
It's literally, this is like the one set in the whole movie that just sort of stuck out to me as looking like it was just polystyrene like walls or something like that. And yeah.
Well, no one's got like, you can't see anybody's breath. Like it doesn't really look that cold.
Yes. You have to pump in, this freezer to like give everyone some cold breath.
You got to make your actors very uncomfortable.
Yes. I mean, these days you just CG in the breath, which I don't necessarily love either. But
maybe it's not ice. Maybe it's something else. Maybe it's something spacey that we don't know about.
That feels like a fan trying to like justify and headcanon something to explain a mistake. Or in this
Maybe
case,
it's actually quite insulated in there, so it's very warm.
yeah, but it's not just the temperature though. It's the actual texture of the walls looks. It looks like a set. It doesn't look like real ice or snow. Which it's just a minor critique. It's just something that I noticed when they were bickering in the hallways. There's a lot of famous lines that come out of this though. When so Han goes and gets Luke and brings him back the next day. The fight. The pilot goes out and finds them, and when Luke wakes up, we get some banter between them where, Han's trying to be all charming to Leia again, and we get the laugh it up fuzzball when Chewie laughs at him. We get the scruffy looking nerf herder. Little bit of trivia here: the band who did the theme song for the hit television show Buffy the Vampire Slayer are called Nerf Herder.
Nerds.
Named after, presumably, this quote. And then Leia, to make Han jealous, or well, maybe not make him jealous, that's maybe not quite the right thing to say, to get back at him for being a dick, goes over and kisses Luke in front of him, which Luke looks so smug about. He really puts his hands behind his head. He's got a little smirk on him. Well, the joke's on you, Luke, because...
Hey, he told her, like, you could use a good kiss, and she went and got it.
Yeah. So... Yeah.
Yeah, we're not talking about spoilers.
Yeah. I'll just say, speaking of things that probably weren't planned for the next movie yet, I think this scene's going to stick out when we talk about something that happens in the next one. That's all I'm going to say.
It's pretty harmless, though.
It's harmless. I think...
It wasn't a romantic kiss anyway.
No, I think it just sticks out because it does feel like the writers don't know.
If they had known, they definitely would have put it in there, right?
Well, I think you could have still put it in there, but I think you'd have played it slightly differently. And you would have certainly acknowledged it a bit more heavily when, the next movie happens and there's reveals.
Can't believe I kissed my sister. Oh, shit. Cut that out.
I mean, I'm not going to. Anyone who knows Empire is going to also know. Like, who are these people who have seen Star Wars and Empire but have not seen Jedi yet?
I was being so good. It's okay, we're in spoilers.
Now, I could joke about incest quite happily because I'm an only child, so I literally, like, the idea of someone kissing their sisters, like, just whatever to me, because, like, I don't have a sister, I don't have a brother, it's just something I've got no danger of accidentally doing it, so, well, unless one of my parents was got some secret kids I don't know about,
Ruh-roh.
but so anyway,
I'm not an only child. I can't recall ever kissing either of my siblings on the lips, though I have seen my father kiss his sister on the lips, but it was like a friendly thing, like it's just a thing that I don't know, they're German, so maybe it's a thing.
It's an old both German and like a previous generation kind of thing.
Yeah.
Maybe
I think so.
Right.
He basically was raised by his older sisters. So
okay, I'm not sure if that makes it better or worse, to be honest, but we'll move swiftly.
I remember thinking
on.
it was weird, like, ew, I would never do that to my brother. But like, it wasn't like a romantic thing either. It was like, it was nice to see you kiss.
Okay.
Maybe we should stop.
Hey, this is clearly a touchy subject for you. I don't care.
Well, yeah, it's burned in my memory.
What stories from Tara's weird family will we get next time? Only time will tell. Anyway, so yeah, but you get all the big action stuff. You get the AT-ATs and all that stuff, which they're out in the
That's
snow.
True. We get new types of scary machines. What else to call them? Vehicles.
Yeah, same with the flying vehicles. Obviously, you have. The X-wings are back, but the main pilots, the main ships they're piloting on Hoth to fight these things are these new little kind of, I don't even know what to describe them as. They're just kind of like more solid shapes. And then Darth Vader's got like a ship later on. It's got the wings that kind of go up. That's kind of new. I did notice during the asteroid stuff. There were these new TIE fighters which were like doubles in the middle. It was almost like a set of binoculars with the TIE fighter wings at the side. So I kind of feel like that was just sort of milking. It's like, okay, you need a new TIE fighter toy to put out this Christmas. All right, I get it.
Yeah.
But those sequences are pretty good. Obviously the fighter pilot going around the legs to topple one of them. But I also
see Luke use the lightsaber to like take one down.
Yeah, I like that because he grapples up to it, so we get this nice wide shot of him grappling up, and then he lightsabers an opening, and then he throws in an explosive, then jumps down, and then the whole thing just goes boom. The only critique I'll have of it, and this is just like a of the time special effects thing, is that when he does the lightsaber thing, it's like he just makes a door open as opposed to actually cutting into the metal and making an actual welding hole. But it's just...
yeah, why wouldn't they use the special editions to fix that?
I mean, I'm glad they didn't. I'd rather they leave it untouched. But yeah, it's just one of those.
I think there's something very
things.
endearing about the type of the model work and the kind of things that we don't really get anymore because of CG. And I think I don't know. I think everybody thinks it's a mistake to touch up the original Star Wars trilogy. Like, it was already, you made your art, you step away. Like, it's done, everybody accepts it, everyone thinks it's a masterpiece, just step away. You don't have to keep working on it.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's acceptable things you can do later. Like something
like director's cuts or something.
Well, director's cuts, but even just like touching things up. Like, I know Ridley Scott like removed the kind of obvious stunt double face and swapped it out with the real actor in Blade Runner, and I think it's like fixing like a tiny mistake like that just corrects something that shouldn't have been there. I think or in Aliens, like when you can see like Lance Henriksen's body pop out when it's not meant to be there. They eventually like digitally altered that when the Blu-rays were done, but you could up until that point you could always see this mistake. So it's just this fixing this one little mistake, and like you could make an argument that it shouldn't, but that doesn't really bother me that much.
In Star Wars, they left the stormtrooper bonking his head on the ceiling, which the first 70 times I watched that movie I never noticed, but when I saw it, I never unsaw it. Every time I watch it, I see it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm okay with that. This is a charm to.
Yeah, I know.
You could just say the stormtrooper bonked his head. That's fine. That can be in universe.
It's funny.
Could be in universe. So they fly off in the Millennium Falcon. Luke, because he's been separated fighting the various vehicles.
The dark side. Oh, okay.
What? He gets his X-wing and goes to Dagobah. So he goes off to his plot with Yoda, which we've talked about, I guess, a bit. But if you want to talk about any other Yoda stuff, now would be the time for it.
Yeah, I know it is kind of annoying when Yoda shows up, but I think it's supposed to draw out, like, he's testing Luke, right? Because Yoda is there to. All right, so Ben Kenobi shows up as a Force Ghost and says, "Luke, you have to go to Dagobah and you have to find a great Jedi Master."
Yeah. And
Luke has this idea of what a Jedi Master would be. He's large and has a leader-like demeanor and is powerful and maybe old, and I don't know, but
he was expecting,
he has an idea of what it's going to be, right?
He was expecting in his prime Gary Busey. I know. That's what you're trying to say.
All teeth. That's all he's expecting. Probably hiding in someone with Tiggle Bitty's attic.
Oh, okay. I was wondering where you'd go with that. What are you talking about tits for? That is a reference to a film called Hider in the House, where Gary Busey hides, would you believe it, in the house.
It's the premise of the film, so
yes.
I highly suggest watching it. And anyway, yeah. So when he gets there, and there's this little shit in the way who's annoying and trying to take his food and hit all of his stuff with a cane and talks funny and is small, he's not expecting that to be the Jedi Master. So the lesson is, like, anybody could be a Jedi. You just have to have the Force within you, or whatever you have to be chosen.
Are we assuming that Yoda used the Force to pull Luke to his location? Because it's very coincidental that Luke happened to crash land within walking distance of Yoda's place.
Well, we know that, maybe, but we know that that Ben is also talking to Yoda.
Yes.
in his Force Ghost form. So
They're colluding.
there could be some. Yeah.
They're colluding and parenting. This is mummy and daddy.
It's awfully coincidental, which makes me think that it has to be something like that.
Yeah. I'm not. That's not really a serious complaint. I'm just pointing out that.
But yeah,
it's a whole planet.
I do find that both characters are annoying in this part. Like, I think Luke is also just is whiny. He was whining in the first movie also.
Yeah, it was a bit whiny, especially at the start when he was wanting to like go off to be in the
power
rebellion.
Converters. But I think like the overarching plot of Luke really pays off because he has to go through this hero's journey and he has to leave the whiny parts of him behind because he needs to be tested, and he needs to have the mirror put in front of him, and he needs to put that stuff behind him and mature.
Yeah, and I think on the scale of the movie as a whole, obviously this is not what Yoda and Kenobi want, but for the purpose of the story of his journey over the whole 3 films, he has to fail, and that's what the end of this movie is him failing. It's like him going against their advice and trying to have the fight anyway and failing. And he stays true to himself to not like accept the dark side. He gets out of there, he gets out of Dodge, but he does fail, and that's a big important part of his journey. Meanwhile, the Millennium Falcon is being pursued by the Empire. Several destroyers, bunch of TIE fighters, all that stuff, and they fly into an asteroid field to try and get rid of them. And eventually they can't get away, so they go and hide inside what they think is a cave on an asteroid. Obviously, the big reveal at the end of this is that it's actually the mouth of a monster. Which I will say, so there's a point where they actually get out the ship, right? And they do put on oxygen masks, but this is effectively just in like the mouth, like in the throat of this monster who's just in space. There's no atmosphere, and I'm like, I know Star Wars isn't the most scientifically, conscious franchise, right?
What are you trying to say?
It doesn't really care. But I can never take it out of my mind that when they're walking around with just these little, and it's like the sort of oxygen mask you put on like a patient in like a hospital. It's just a little, over the nose.
It's barely a respirator.
Yeah. And I'm like, going into space, you need more protection than just a little oxygen.
What about your
mask.
eyeballs?
There's a lot more going on there, and I know it doesn't matter. It's not important.
Turns out the pressure is fine outside.
But it always just sticks out to me. But yeah, so that leads to more bickering, and there's a cute little moment here actually where C-3PO's been annoying Han like the whole movie. He keeps like butting in, he interrupts him when he's finally getting to smooch with Leia a little bit and maybe getting somewhere, and he's just so pissed off at him. But there's a moment where C-3PO tells him there's a part of the ship needs replaced, and Han's like, of course it needs replaced, right? And just sort of like, grills him for it, and then turns around 2 seconds later to Chewie and says, oh, but Chewie, I think we need to replace that thing, revealing that he didn't actually know that. And I was like, oh, that's kind of nice. It's almost like you should have thanked C-3PO for that advice. But
C-3PO is just trying to be helpful the whole movie, and he just keeps getting the crap kicked out of him.
He never is. He's never helpful once in this entire film.
I do like that the role of Chewie in this film seems to be to take care of the droids, though. Like he's sort of become like, Chewie's like based on a dog, right? Which is normally a pet or companion animal, but Chewie's taking care of the droids like they're a pet, almost like they're kind of helpless, or at least C-3PO especially just is constantly like getting lost and needs help and shouldn't be on his own.
Also blown up
or blown up. Like he's always trying to find him and like keep him from being murdered by Han. I enjoyed that dynamic because it's a little bit like, well, what are we going to do with the droids in this film if Luke's going to be separated from them? Well, we'll just have them have this other strange new dynamic, really.
Well, one of them, R2's with them.
Yeah, you're right. The droids are separated, which is also very unusual, right? Because they were together the whole film, the first one.
Yeah, and R2 was always the capable one. Like the whole joke in the first movie was that C-3PO would prattle on as if R2's not doing anything useful, but then it turned out R2 was solving the entire problem with, you know, hacking into something or whatever he was doing. That was kind of the
being adorable.
The back and forth of them. And there's a moment in this actually when they're on Dagobah where R2 goes on his tiptoes to look in the window when they're, I guess when they're in Yoda's little hut, and he's like sort of on his tiptoes to look in the window. And I'm like, did Yoda not want R2 in there, or did he not fit in the little entranceway? You have to crawl in.
Beating up R2. I love every time R2 screams or has his like nervous whistle, the ooh noises. He's so cute.
So, that's the other thing I always forget when I'm watching this is how many parts there is to, specifically the Falcon dealing with the Empire, because you've got like a whole chase sequence into the asteroid field, and I always remember the asteroid bit and the monster. But then I always forget that when they come out of that, they're immediately in line of sight again, and they're immediately having to like evade, and they end up tricking them by kind of like sort of like going out of their senses by attaching themselves to the ship, to the Death Star, not Death Star, sorry, the Star Destroyer, and they sort of hide sort of like in plain sight, as it were, for a little bit, and then they use like expelling its trash to sort of sneak away after they've sort of like given up.
I like the idea that the ships all have to evacuate before they can jump the light speed.
Why have I got
let's just dump our trash before we go, whatever.
Yeah. Does this ever come up again? They do
I don't
this?
know.
I don't think it does, but I mean, maybe people will tell me I'm wrong. But of course, while they're hiding, this is when we get Darth Vader talking to a bunch of bounty hunters that are all... Basically, he wants them to find the Falcon, and it turns out, you know, Han's reference, the reason why he was leaving at the start is because Jabba the Hutt's still after him, so that plot thread's still going. And it turns out Boba Fett is trying to find him for Jabba the Hutt, which becomes very important a little bit later. So Han says, like, hey, we're not too far away from this place. There's this guy there named Lando. I think, you know, I don't know if I can trust him, but he doesn't like the Empire, so I think, you know, you'll give us shelter. We could go and hide there. And there's a little bit of a build up to that.
We're boys. We go way back.
Yeah. And of course, there's a bit of tension at first, but Lando comes out and hugs him, and it all feels hunky-dory. And it's all just, you know, and this ends up leading to, of course, that the Empire got here first because Boba Fett was following them and figured out where they were going. And Lando's turned them in. He's turned on them to sort of basically keep the Empire from interfering with his mining business that he's got going here. He's very happy with the Empire not being a part of it. So he's made a deal, which leads to a couple of more famous lines. This deal keeps getting worse all the time. And also, I've altered the deal. Pray I don't alter it further. You know, some very quotable moments. And that last one especially is the one where it sort of convinces Lando to like sort of say F it and try and help the main characters, because he's never really happy about it. You know, Lando, he's a very interesting character to add into a second movie, because there's a whole question of like, can we trust him or not? And then he turns on them.
He's not a rebel. He's just like a businessman.
Yeah, but then he does turn on them, but then almost immediately, like, it never feels like he's just been a villain. It always feels like there's a sort of reason for it. And then the more he sees like them being treated by Vader and co, when he sees Han being tortured or hears Han being tortured, and then he hears that Vader's going to take Leia with him, like, he does ultimately, it's like he's got a meter in a video game building up of like, okay, the empathy and moral meters, like, it's building, oh no, it's hit its gauge, okay, it's time for him to swoop into action and do something good. And sure enough, he does, and tries to help them. This is after, of course, Han is frozen in carbonite, which we have to talk about. So yeah, this is after the scene that the blue balls does with, what would Han, Leia, and Darth Vader talk about at dinner? Bastards. But we get the famous, you know, I love you, I know scene. And
what
yeah,
a jerk.
This was, well, I actually see watching the whole movie, I think it's easy to forget when you just see that clip or you hear that scene quoted.
Yeah, on its own, I agree. It sounds worse, but like the whole movie, he's trying to get her to admit that she loves him.
Yeah, or just, is interested at the very least. So it's this big thing where she thinks he's about to, because they don't know if this will kill him. They're testing this technology on technology. They're testing this technology on him to see if it will kill him, so that they know if it's safe to use for Luke. So it's this sort of like heat of the moment thing, and she finally admits these feelings in the most, grand way possible. And he just says, "I know," because his entire thing, the whole movie, the running joke almost, is that he keeps saying, "I know you're into me, you just don't want to admit it." So it's a payoff to all that. So in context of the whole movie, it works quite well, even though on its own it sounds like he's been a dick. But I don't think it works. I think it works in the context of the movie.
Yeah. But when you see like the couple's T-shirts and stuff where it says "I love you, I know," I'm like, does it work the same? Just kind of come off as a dick.
Yeah, it does. It does. It is weird when it's just quoted on its own. Like, I guess you're supposed to get what it's from and understand the context of it, but it is a bit strange when it's used that way.
It's used for like wedding stuff too. Okay.
But I love this set that they're in for this, because this is where so Luke shows up and he's sneaking about a bit, but he ends up in this room, right? And this is where he encounters Darth Vader. And what I love about this, I love the lighting here. It's a mix of blue and orange, which, if you know movie posters from the last 20 years, that's the color combination to make things feel epic.
That is the epic color.
But it feels really grand. It feels like a big deal that they're going toe to toe, that they're standing up to each other, that Luke's breaking out his lightsaber. And even when it spills out into the hall, like, I like that that's equally empty. Like, the entire confrontation between Luke and Darth Vader, there's not a single extra in the background. There's no one there. It's like this personal one-on-one thing the entire time, regardless of which stage of the fight we're at.
There's so much silhouette, and when like the lightsabers first come out too, it is very epic. That's why they triggered all those posters. But like, obviously, blue and orange are very complementary colors. But like, blue is also a very satisfying color to look at.
Oh, so calming. You mentioned silhouette. Actually, when he first goes in the room, the main orange light isn't really on yet, so he's kind of standing almost in complete shadow. He's just a bit of light going around, the rim of his face, and then that orange light comes on. Like, the lighting of the scene, like
yeah, it's really gorgeous.
All of it's just beautiful, and like I say, the tone and the mood as this fight is happening, and it's funny. I'm going to compare it to something that came later. But you know how in Dark Knight Rises, when Batman's fighting Bane, and it kind of feels like, okay, Batman's going toe to toe because he thinks he's got a chance, but we, the audience, kind of feel like, I don't think you do. That we're not at the part of the story yet where you're going to win. This is the part of the story where the villain's going to kick your ass, and you're going to have to sort of learn from your mistakes. That's what it feels like. It feels like Luke's fighting a fight he's not going to win. But the victory for the movie, for the satisfaction of the movie, is that he doesn't like give in to the dark side in any way. He's able to, pull away from that. But that's like, so they go through the window, they fight in the big corridor. All the sets look great. The big matte painting for the giant like drop on the walkway. It's all very good.
It fantastic.
Yeah. So.
And frightening. Luke is, like you said, he's not ready. He's going to step up to him because he feels confident, but he's barely started his training, and he left to go save his friends, and he's just overly confident. He's not there yet, and now he's put in this incredibly vulnerable position, and he's on he's holding onto a railing with a missing hand. And it's like, how does he get out of this? He can't. He's not just backed into a corner, he's backed into a chasm.
And I think what's so great about it is that his motivation is one that the audience can get behind, because he's doing it for Han and Leia. He came here to help them, and for me especially, but I think just for the audience in general, like for the people who care about the characters, even if it's the wrong choice technically, because the wise people in the movie have said it's the wrong choice, the fact that he's made this choice to save the other characters that we care about,
who have gotten away,
and we care about their bond, we care about them, being there for each other. That like really makes it satisfying for us, the audience, even if he is making technically the wrong choice. So all of that works really well. And obviously it ends in this downbeat thing where he's missing a hand, he's getting his and that's obviously ties into, because I think there's a line in the first movie where Obi-Wan says, Darth Vader's like, he's more mechanical than he is man now, or whatever the line was, but
Yeah,
implying
more
that
machine than man. Yeah.
yeah, and there's even a glimpse of what you see the back of his head at one point, and he's like egg thing, Darth Vader, with his helmet off. You see the back of his head, so they're teasing that a little bit, which actually is also good foreshadowing for the ending. It's basically saying, hey, we're going to learn more about this guy, and sure enough, at the end, you do learn a huge, big thing about him, which actually, I think part of the reason why people, especially ones who were around at the time when these movies were coming out and seeing them in theaters, I think part of the reason why this one is loved as much as it is because they get more Darth Vader in this one than the last one. I think Darth Vader was such a popular character that because this movie gives you a lot more of him and gives him a goal by wanting to try and turn Luke and like seeing him work for someone else and seeing him like punish the people underneath him, you just get so much more of him compared to the first movie. I think for the audiences at the time in 1980, that was probably super exciting.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, he right from the get-go of the first film, he's so intimidating, and he's got this, fantastic voice performance by James Earl Jones that he's really like remarkably well designed as like iconic movie villain. And to have him so prominent in the second film, like okay, this works, so let's use it, and make him so tied to Luke now, like that he's got an actual biological connection where it not only means that Luke may be more conflicted in the next film when he has to go head to head with him, but also like us as an audience, we suspect Luke's going to be the hero, but now there's this other wrench in there saying like, well, his dad was a hero and turned to the dark side, and he's his son, maybe he's a chip off the old block.
Yeah, there's like another reason other than just the raw temptation of going to the dark side. Now there's like I could go be with my father. I could go and have that bond if I
rule the
go
galaxy
over.
as father, son.
So I think it has a hopeful ending because he's able to pull himself away from it, but there is that kind of darkness lingering over it of like, okay, now there's like an extra layer to this conflict. So the movie ends with Lando on the Falcon with Chewie going off to try and find where Han Solo's been taken. And Luke's getting his arm or his hand seen to, and it ends in a bit of a downbeat moment. It's not this like big hurrah at the end.
Yeah, no, Han's missing. They're missing a valued cast member. The trio is now a duo. What are we gonna do?
I suspect that'll be the first thing they do in the third movie is deal with getting Han back.
Yep.
That'd be my guess. I'll say that much. Yeah, I mean the movie's obviously great. Like I think I have my reservations about certain elements of it. I don't put it on the pedestal that a lot of people do. People put it on this like super. It's this movie and Lord of the Rings that I feel like get this pedestal that I just can't.
Well, Lord of the Rings is well deserved.
Yeah,
you're crazy.
Yeah. But that doesn't mean that I don't see a lot of the greatness in here. And it is a really solid sequel that does advance things for the characters. It takes the chemistry of Han and Leia and advances that into the next stage of a relationship. It takes the conflict between Luke and Darth Vader and makes that more interesting. And it really builds up to it to be this epic kind of like showdown by the time we actually get there. I don't really care about like the training and Jedi stuff that much. That's maybe more of a personal taste thing, but it's not really enough to like pull it down that much. It's not like it's like super in the way. So, expect a perfectly well thought out and reasoned rating out of 10. But I don't go first. Tara goes first.
Okay. I sort of see Empire like I do Terminator 2, in that I think they're both examples of just incredible sequels when, in genres that especially tend to fail at sequels. But because I have so much reverence for the first one, I'm just going to knock it a little bit because I'm just establishing that maybe they are both 10s. you know, both the first and the second one, for both franchises. But because I love the first one so much, I just want to rate it a little bit higher. But I do think this is a really, really excellent film, and I'll give it a 9.5.
Yeah. I've kind of jumped around my rating for this over the years, depending on like when I've watched it again in my life. I've either been more into them, maybe a bit more fatigued with Star Wars, so it's not landed as well as it otherwise would have done. But you know, after enough viewings and enough sort of back and forth and whatnot, like I feel like ultimately I'm happy to settle on just giving it a 9 out of 10 because it is, you know, like the feel of the set pieces, the way it advances the conflict, is great. It's when, you know, it kind of dips into, like, we're going to talk more about the Jedi and stuff, where it's not too bad in this, don't get me wrong, but I can almost see kind of the starting cracks of like something that maybe, you know, leads to what I hate largely about the prequels. Not the prequel. I mean, the prequels have a lot of problems. Like they have layers of problems, but one of the things that I don't like about expanded Star Wars after the original trilogy is like the obsession with the lore of the Jedi councils and all that shit. Anywho,
you're
yes.
upset that it's not as revered as Star Trek, and I totally understand.
Very good.
I get it. I had to hide that I was a Trekkie for so long, but everyone was just flaunting their Star Wars love. Like it was no big deal. Like, I don't want to live in this world. Luckily, things have changed. It's okay to be a nerd now.
Wait, did everyone betray you?
I've been up with this world.
Tara didn't even realize she quoted The Room.
I know, and I just watched it in theaters for the 20th anniversary. Can you believe it's been 20 years? That's insane.
I thought it was 21. Was it 2003? I thought it was 2002.
I don't know. Maybe there's some like festival dates, you know, that can kind of mess with things.
Maybe. Anywho,
The Billboard was definitely up in 2002.
Oh dear. All right. Well, there you go. That's Empire. Oh, it was not as painful as I thought it might be.
I'm glad.
I think I was reasonable with my preferences and critiques, and
it's okay to like the original trilogy and not like anything else.
And I don't think we had to fight about anything, which I thought we might. So that's good.
I agree. Good job. You did well today.
Yes. So anyway, yeah, that wraps up number 2 season. So we got a vote winner movie to do next week. We'll be looking at Hollow Man, which won an Invisible Man vote. So
whoa,
it's a Paul Verhoeven movie once again on the
Dipping
Atomic
back
Cinema
into
Experiment.
the well of sleazy European awesomeness.
So we'll be looking at that next week. And then we have a new season of sorts starting after that. There was a vote on Patreon a couple months ago for what a season would be. And the winner was post-apocalyptic. So there'll be about 5 weeks in a row with post-apocalyptic movies starting after Hollow Man. So look forward to that. So yeah, we'll get into all that stuff. So yeah, of course, I mentioned Patreon there. You can support everything by going over to patreon.com/MailFuzzTV, and every month you'll get a bonus episode of The Ace. You'll get something that, you know, usually a B movie or something. Sometimes we'll tie it into what we're doing on the show. For example, we're just about to do, it's a little bit late because Tara was away and then had tech issues this past weekend.
It's been so hot here that I think it was just screwing with things.
Yeah, but we're about to do Mimic 2 to tie in with all the number 2s, so there'll be a 2 on the bonus episode as well. Obviously we did the original as a regular episode, but sometimes we'll do the crappy direct-to-video sequels as bonuses. And then at the $5 tier and up, you get access to the Ace Meltdown every month, which is me and Tara just catching up with all the movies we've been watching, the video games we've been playing, and anything else we've been doing, sort of, you know, media, pop culture wise. And we used to do quizzes at the start that were sci-fi related, although we just started a new thing this past episode where we do Mount Rushmores of different sci-fi related things.
Is that going to keep going?
Yeah, we're going to be doing that for at least a few episodes, I think.
Okay.
I think it's a fun set. At least take a discussion. So, yeah, so if that all sounds like fun, there's also bonuses for other shows, of course, like Screams After Midnight and The Collector's Cut. Go and check it out. But that is that. Otherwise, like, subscribe, ding the bell for notifications, all the usual things on YouTube, rate the podcast on iTunes, share us with your science fiction and podcast loving friends. But that is the show. So, thank you very much for joining us. We always appreciate it. Keep watching science fiction and computer ad salsa.